Tonight we step quietly into a world where soap doesn't exist, where the very idea of being clean is not a daily obsession, but a vague, occasional aspiration. Picture a time when the wind carried the smell of fire and sweat, when washing meant something closer to splashing mud from one place to another, and where the concept of freshness was mostly theoretical. There are no bathroom shelves lined with bottles, no comforting lather, just the stubborn blend of life's grime clinging to everyone's skin like a badge of survival. I'm the candlelight historian, and this is history as it was lived, unforgiving, unfiltered, and brutally real. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy these journeys through the past. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Now, relax, take a deep breath, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Imagine the earliest humans crouched near a fire, their skins streaked with earth and smoke, their hair tangled like wild grass. To them, this isn't filth, it's just life. The dirt under their nails is the same dirt they've used to cover food, to build shelters, to smear onto their bodies as camouflage. There is no concept of clean or unclean. There is only existing, and the idea that perhaps the rain is not just for the plants, but for them, too. Picture the first time a human stood under a downpour, perhaps after a long hunt, and felt the water cutting through the dust and sweat. The cool sensation would have been less about cleanliness and more about sheer relief, like nature giving a free massage. Yet, as they rubbed their arms and watched the mud swirl away, they must have noticed that something changed. Skin felt less sticky, hair hung differently. Maybe, just maybe, water could do more than quench thirst. There are no soaps here, no fragrances to chase away odors. Smells linger. Imagine a mix of animal hides, smoke, and unwashed bodies. A scent that would make modern noses twitch, but, back then, was the smell of the tribe itself. It's the smell of belonging. If someone did suddenly appear with a soapy floral aroma, they'd probably be mistaken for a magical creature or a walking plant. This world feels raw. The ground is always under your feet, and it always ends up on your hands, face, and hair. Sleeping on Earth means waking up with streaks of it in your hairline. Even food preparation adds another layer of stickiness and grease, the kind that never really leaves your fingers no matter how hard you rub them on grass. It's a life where grime is not seen as something to conquer, but as something that simply lives with you. And yet, even here, there's a quiet curiosity about being clean. Not for the sake of impressing anyone, there are no mirrors, after all, but for the feeling of freshness. Think of rubbing your skin with coarse leaves just because they feel better than grit, or stepping into a stream on a warm day simply because the water is there. It's not yet hygiene, not yet habit, but it's the start of a very long journey. It's funny to think that these early humans, who had no soap, no shampoos, and no deodorants, might have been healthier in some ways, without constant stripping of oils. Their skin found its own balance. Without harsh detergents, their hair wasn't dry and brittle. They didn't obsess over germs because the word germ wouldn't exist for thousands of years. To them, a bit of mud was probably good for the soul, or at least for hiding from predators. If you listen carefully, you might hear the rhythmic scraping of someone rubbing a stone or twig against their skin. It's not an exfoliation routine they read about online. It's just instinct. The same instinct that tells a dog to roll in grass or a bird to preen its feathers. Being covered in too much of the world's dust feels heavy, and the urge to remove it, even just a little, feels like lightening the load. The air is filled with the smoky scent of a recent fire, A smell so embedded in their daily lives that it's practically part of their identity. You might even think of it like the world's first signature scent. Smoky wood mixed with a hint of mammoth fur and whatever plant someone accidentally stepped on that morning. It's a smell that would stick to your hair for days, but no one minds because everyone else smells exactly the same. Occasionally, there's the sound of water, a stream trickling over stones or rain pounding against leaves. And when it rains, the tribe doesn't run for cover. Some might tilt their faces to the sky, feeling droplets wash away a layer of sweat. They may rub their arms, not because they're washing, but because the sensation feels nice. It's a form of care so natural, so instinctive, that it hardly needs a name. There's also a kind of humor here. Imagine someone trying to rub a patch of stubborn mud from their leg with a stick and realizing they've just created more scratches than progress. Or someone else deciding to jump in a shallow puddle, thinking it'll make them cleaner, only to climb out looking like they've been dipped in chocolate. Cleaning, back then, was a messy experiment, a hit or miss activity at best. If you were to walk among them now, you'd probably feel out of place. Not because of how they look, you'd be just as streaked with earth in a matter of hours, but because of how freely they accept it. No one is self-conscious. No one is wondering if they smell off. It's a refreshing lack of anxiety, the kind of confidence that comes from simply not having mirrors or perfumes to compare yourself against. But something is stirring in these minds. The simple knowledge that water feels good, that wiping away dust makes you lighter, is the first step toward something bigger. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually, this idea will grow. People will start to experiment. They'll find plants and minerals that do more than rinse. They'll invent tools, routines, and even rituals. They'll turn cleanliness into something that feels almost sacred. For now, though, the journey begins here, in this muddy, smoky world where rain is a blessing and a rough scrub with sand feels like progress. You can almost hear the gentle crackle of a fire nearby, the kind that keeps the chill away after a long, wet day. It's a humble beginning, but it's where the long story of cleanliness truly starts. Picture yourself waking with the sun, feeling the weight of dried sweat and dust from the day before, clinging to your skin like an extra layer of clothing. There is no soap, no shower to step into, but there is water, a narrow stream trickling through smooth stones just beyond the edge of camp. Its surface glints in the early light, cool and uninviting at first glance, but strangely promising. Water is the first and simplest tool for cleansing, discovered long before anyone thought to grind ash or boil fat. You wander toward it, the sound of rushing water steady and hypnotic. There's no tap to twist, no warm spray waiting on command. Instead, you crouch by the bank and plunge your hands into the stream. The cold shocks your fingertips, shooting up your arms like tiny electric currents. It's so cold that every bone in your fingers wants to leap back out. But once the first splash hits your face, you realize something. The chill is also refreshing. It wakes you up better than any modern alarm clock. You rub your hands across your cheeks, and for a brief moment, it feels as though the weight of yesterday's dirt has loosened. There's no lather, of course, just the satisfying sound of water slapping against your skin. Early humans probably didn't think of this as washing. It was survival. Clean water wasn't just a luxury, it was life. They bathed when they could, not because they wanted to smell fresh, but because rivers and rain were the only natural rinses available. After hours under the sun, covered in mud, ash, and sweat, that first dip into a cold river must have felt almost divine. Imagine lowering yourself into the stream, The shock of cold bites at your legs, then your waist, like 1,000 tiny teeth. For a moment, you shiver uncontrollably. Your breath comes in short bursts, each one visible in the cool morning air. But then, slowly, you adjust. Your body surrenders to the temperature. You feel the grit of yesterday's labor loosening and slipping away with the current. It's primitive, but it's effective. Water does what it does best. It rinses. Of course, this method is not without its drawbacks. A quick splash won't do much against the stubborn, oily layer of animal fat from last night's cooking, or the sticky residue of wild berries smeared on your fingers. Water alone doesn't cut through everything. That realization likely came quickly, pushing people to experiment with other methods. But for now, this simple, almost meditative process of standing in a stream, rubbing your arms and face, is enough. The setting itself adds to the experience. You're surrounded by smooth stones that have been polished by centuries of flowing water, their surfaces slick and cool. The sound of the current rushing past is like a low hum, soothing in its constancy. Birds dart through the trees overhead, calling out as they start their own morning routines. Somewhere in the distance, the wind carries the smell of wet earth, fresh and slightly metallic. All these details weave together to create something that feels both wild and calming. It's easy to imagine that this moment, the act of stepping into a river to rinse, might have been one of the first true rituals in human history. Not a religious ceremony, but a small daily habit, something that brought relief after a day of sweat and labor. Even now, modern people are drawn to natural water for this reason. A plunge into a mountain lake or an ocean swim has the same primal thrill, the same clean shock that resets both body and mind. But don't get too romantic about it. Early bathing was rarely comfortable. Without heated water, everything felt sharp and unforgiving. Winters were brutal, and standing in an icy stream was less about feeling clean and more about gritting your teeth and getting it over with. There were no fluffy towels to wrap yourself in afterward, no cozy bathroom where you could step out into warmth. You'd just stand there dripping, hoping a breeze wouldn't make the whole experience worse. Still, the benefits were undeniable. Washing in rivers meant removing at least a layer of grime. It meant cooling down on a hot day or warming up muscles that had tightened from walking or hunting. It was practical. It didn't matter if the water was a bit murky or if fish darted around your feet. Cleanish was better than nothing. And then there's the rain. Imagine being caught in a sudden storm. At first, it's inconvenient. Then, as the drops soak your hair and trickle down your face, you realize it's an unexpected gift. You raise your arms to the sky, letting the rain do the work for you, rinsing away sweat and dust. There's a strange joy in that, a reminder that cleanliness, in its simplest form, is often just standing still and letting nature take care of things. There's humor here too. Think of the first person who probably tried to dunk their head under a waterfall and got smacked in the face with a gallon of freezing water. Or the poor soul who tripped on a slippery rock while trying to bathe and went tumbling downstream, emerging only slightly cleaner but far more bruised. These early rinses were not glamorous. They were messy, cold, and often improvised. But they worked at least enough to keep people from feeling like they were carrying the entire forest on their backs. Even now, as you stand in that imaginary stream, you can feel the weight of grit sliding away with every handful of cold water you pour over yourself. Your skin tingles from the temperature shift. The smell of damp earth clings to the air, mixing with the sharp freshness of flowing water. It's not luxurious, but it's real, it's raw. and for a brief moment, it feels like stepping into the very first chapter of humanity's story of staying clean. The stream fades from view as you walk back to the fire, but a lingering awareness remains. The water made you feel lighter, cleaner in a way that is almost satisfying. Yet as soon as you sit, dust rises around you. The earth clings to damp skin, and the illusion of cleanliness vanishes. It is here that people start to experiment with something beyond water. They need a way to really remove the stubborn layers of grease, soot, and sweat. The solution, if you can call it that, is surprisingly rough. Sand and ash are everywhere. They are free, plentiful, and oddly effective. Someone rubs a handful of sand along their arm, and the grit scrapes away whatever is stuck there. It hurts a little, but pain is simply part of life. There is no word for exfoliation yet, but the act is not far from what we do in modern spas. Though, let us be honest, your local spa is unlikely to hand you a bucket of ash and tell you to scrub until you feel raw. Imagine picking up warm ash from last night's fire, the soft powder sticking to your fingertips. When mixed with a little water, it forms a grey paste. You smear it along your arms, and it dries almost instantly, leaving a chalky film that absorbs oils. A quick rinse afterward, and you feel different, roughened, but cleaner. There is no pleasant fragrance. Instead, you smell like smoke, which everyone accepts as a kind of natural perfume. Sand, on the other hand, is less forgiving. It scours the skin like nature's version of steel wool. When rubbed over the body, it leaves the surface glowing in a way that almost feels polished. But it is also uncomfortable, especially if the grains are coarse or sharp. The first people who tried it probably alternated between satisfaction and regret. You can imagine someone saying, "Well, I am clean now, but I may also have lost a layer of skin." Clay becomes another tool in this growing list of cleaning methods. It is cool to the touch, smooth when wet, and has an odd way of pulling impurities out of the skin. When you coat your arms in a thin layer of wet clay, it dries to a stiff crust. Peeling it off feels like removing a heavy mask. Beneath, the skin feels soft, but also a little shocked from the process. The first time this was tried, it might have been less about cleaning and more about curiosity. What happens if I cover myself with mud and then wash it off? Surprisingly, the answer was that you feel fresher. There is something oddly meditative about these simple methods. The act of rubbing sand on your arms or smearing ash across your face forces you to slow down. There are no mirrors. You simply feel your way through the process, noticing each rough scrape or soft smear. You feel the tiny particles digging into the folds of your skin, carrying away the buildup of yesterday's work. It is primitive, yes, but it is also effective. The downside is obvious. These methods are not exactly gentle. A few minutes with coarse sand, and you may look clean but feel like you have wrestled a thorn bush. Ash, while softer, tends to leave a dry, tight sensation on the skin. No one is reaching for a moisturizer afterward. Instead, people rub a bit of animal fat onto dry spots, which sounds unpleasant but works better than you might think. As the sun dips lower, you see others around you experimenting in their own ways. One person uses a handful of crushed leaves as a rough cloth. Another dips their hands into a bucket of ash and pats it onto their arms, looking like they are preparing for battle. These are the first experiments in what will eventually become the science of skincare. It is both crude and brilliant in its simplicity. You can imagine the scene. A group gathers near a fire, passing around small piles of sand or handfuls of ash. The air smells like wood smoke and earth. Someone laughs as they accidentally get ash in their hair. turning it a ghostly shade of grey. Another person rubs a gritty paste along their legs, complaining about how it scratches but secretly pleased with the results. There is no shame in these methods. No one compares themselves to anyone else. It is all just part of daily life. Even now, you can feel the sensation on your own skin, that rough scrape, the faint warmth as blood rises closer to the surface, the surprising smoothness that follows. It is not a luxurious feeling, but it is a clean feeling. A strange, simple clean that comes not from bubbles or foam, but from friction and earth. The night grows cooler. You feel the last bits of sand falling away as you brush your hands together. The fire crackles nearby. Its warm glow, a reminder that every part of life is connected to the land, even the act of washing. Before there was soap, there was sand, ash, and clay. And these basic tools did more for early humanity than we often realize. Morning light filters through the trees, soft and golden as you step away from the sleeping area. The air carries the faint smell of last night's fire and the earthy scent of damp soil. Your skin still remembers the scrape of sand and ash from the day before, but a thin layer of sweat has already returned. Cleaning is never permanent in this world, but that does not stop people from trying. Today, the experiment continues with something less rough, something that feels almost clever. Animal fat is plentiful after a hunt. Leftover scraps, too tough to eat, are melted down over the fire, creating a thick, oily substance. At first, this fat is used to waterproof tools, to coat leather, or to burn in lamps. But someone, somewhere, discovers another use. Rubbed onto skin, the fat softens and loosens grime, making it easier to wipe off with a cloth or handful of leaves. It is not glamorous. It does not smell pleasant. In fact, it smells faintly of cooked meat. But it works. Imagine dipping your fingers into a small pot of this melted fat. It is warm and slippery, coating your skin in a thin, greasy layer. Rubbing it onto your arms feels strange at first, like spreading cooking oil on your own body. But then you notice how it lifts the dirt and makes the surface smoother. When you wipe it away with a rough cloth, you are left with skin that feels cleaner, though now it carries the faint aroma of last night's stew. Plant oils, on the other hand, feel lighter. Crushed seeds or nuts release oils that can be rubbed into skin. Olive oil is a famous example from later times, but even before that, smaller experiments would have taken place with wild seeds and berries. These natural oils do more than clean. They also protect skin from drying out after hours in the wind and sun. Of course, they are not free from flaws. Rub too much on, and you simply end up greasy and shiny, like a roasted chicken waiting to be carved. There is something ritualistic about this process. You sit by the fire, a small pot of fat or oil in your lap, working it slowly into your skin. The warmth of the fire softens the mixture, making it glide more easily. You feel the grit loosen, mixing with the oil until your hands are coated with an unpleasant grey smear. Then, using a piece of cloth or a handful of moss, you wipe it all away. It is satisfying in a strange, primitive way, like erasing the marks of the previous day. The smell is another story. Animal fat, especially if not well prepared, has a strong, lingering odor. It clings to you long after you have wiped it off, blending with smoke and sweat to create a scent that would probably clear a modern room. Yet, back then, it is simply part of life. Nobody questions it. If anything, the smell of fat is comforting, a sign of food, survival, and warmth. There are other mixtures too. People experiment with crushed plants, mixing them with water or oil to create strange pastes. Some plants have astringent properties, making the skin feel tighter and cleaner. Others are added simply for their smell, a small attempt to mask the less pleasant odors of the day. Imagine crushing wild mint or pine needles between your hands, releasing sharp, fresh scents. You rub them along your arms, not just to feel cleaner, but to carry that crisp fragrance with you. The tools for these experiments are basic. Smooth stones, flat pieces of bone, and coarse cloths made from woven fibers all serve as scrubbers. Someone might dip a piece of cloth into warm fat and use it like a wipe, rubbing it along their arms and legs until the dirt lifts. It is not elegant, but it works. Each pass of the cloth leaves the skin slightly softer, slightly more polished. There is humor in the trial and error. Picture someone using the wrong plant, ending up smelling less like pine and more like rotten cabbage. Or someone applying too much animal fat, turning into a walking candle ready to ignite if they stand too close to the fire. These moments, though frustrating, are also how people learn. Each mistake adds to the slow discovery of what truly cleans and what simply makes a mess. Even now, you can almost feel it, the warmth of the fire, the slick texture of oil between your fingers, the way it seems to carry away a thin film of dirt when wiped clean. There is a certain satisfaction in this simple process, a sense that, even without modern products, there are ways to feel refreshed. It might not involve fluffy towels or sweet-smelling soap, but it still feels like progress. As the sun climbs higher, the tribe begins to pack away their tools. Someone pours the remaining fat into a small container for later use. The smell lingers in the air, mingling with the faint scent of wild herbs. It is not perfect, but for this moment, it is enough. The day grows warmer, and the air fills with the earthy scent of leaves and damp soil. You watch as someone kneels by a patch of greenery, crushing plants between their fingers, releasing sharp, natural aromas. This is where the next chapter of cleaning begins, not with fire or fat, but with the quiet gifts of plants. Plants have always been more than food. Long before anyone learned to make soap, they discovered that certain leaves, flowers, and saps could do remarkable things for the skin. Some plants foam slightly when rubbed with water. Others leave behind pleasant fragrances, and many have natural oils that help lift dirt. Imagine taking a bundle of fresh mint leaves, crushing them in your palms until a scent of cool sharpness clings to your hands, then rubbing that fragrant mixture along your arms. It is not only cleansing, but refreshing in a way that makes you feel almost new. There are other choices too. Pine needles release a tangy, resin-like smell when crushed, a scent that feels like walking through a forest after rain. Lavender, once discovered, would have added a soft floral note, the kind that lingers gently rather than shouting for attention. Herbs like rosemary or thyme would leave their own mark, both in smell and in the way they make your skin feel slightly tingly, as if waking up from a deep sleep. Picture the scene. Someone crouches by a small fire, a handful of crushed leaves mixed with a bit of warm water in a clay bowl. The water turns cloudy as the plant oils seep into it, creating a kind of natural rinse. They dip a cloth in, squeeze out the excess, and gently wipe it across their face. The mixture does not lather, but it softens the skin and leaves a lingering scent that masks the harsh smell of smoke and sweat. For a few minutes, the world feels fresher. Sap from certain trees becomes another tool. Sticky at first, but surprisingly effective. It can be used to remove stubborn grime or even as a natural antiseptic. Imagine peeling the bark of a tree and finding that the sap, when mixed with water, forms a slick surface that lifts dirt in ways plain water cannot. Of course, this is learned through trial and error. Not every sap is friendly. Some stick like glue, others irritate the skin. You can almost picture the frustration on the face of someone who picked the wrong tree and spent the rest of the day peeling sticky resin from their arms. Flowers add another layer of discovery. Crushed petals, when mixed with a little oil, create a soft paste that not only cleans, but leaves a subtle perfume. Rose petals, in particular, would have been prized for their soothing nature. The act of rubbing crushed flowers onto the skin feels almost luxurious compared to sand or ash. It is as though nature herself decided to offer a moment of comfort. This process is not just about cleaning. It becomes a kind of ritual. People gather herbs and flowers not just for food or medicine, but for the small joy of feeling fresher. The gathering itself is sensory. The snap of a stem, the earthy smell of roots, the vibrant color of wild blooms. Even the act of rubbing the plants on your skin is meditative, each motion slow and deliberate, as though acknowledging that nature has provided yet another quiet solution. The mixtures can be surprisingly inventive. Someone might combine ash with crushed mint leaves, adding a splash of water to form a grey-green paste that both scrubs and scents the skin. Another might use clay mixed with crushed lavender for a kind of primitive face mask. These experiments are clumsy but surprisingly effective, and they slowly shift the idea of cleanliness from something purely functional to something that can also feel pleasant. There is humor here too. Picture someone walking into the group, with their face stained green from crushed leaves, looking more like they have lost a fight with a salad than completed a cleaning ritual. Or someone who chose the wrong plant and now smells faintly like onions for the rest of the day. These missteps are part of the process, adding a touch of playfulness to the otherwise serious work of survival. The scents that linger are subtle but comforting. After a round of plant-based cleaning, the air is filled with hints of mint, pine, and smoke. It feels less like a spa and more like a forest breeze, but the effect is similar, a sense of freshness, of being connected to the natural world. You can almost imagine lying down in the grass afterward, breathing in the mixture of herbs and earth, and feeling that, for a brief moment, you are cleaner than you have been in days. The simplicity of it all is part of the charm. There are no bottles, no brand names, no complicated steps, just the quiet wisdom of noticing that the plants around you can offer more than food or shade. A handful of leaves, a splash of water, and a little patience are enough to bring a sense of renewal. Even now, the idea feels soothing. As evening approaches, someone tosses the leftover crushed leaves onto the fire. The flames crackle, releasing a faint herbal aroma that drifts through the camp. The day's experiments are done, but the scent of nature's cleansers lingers in the air, soft and grounding. The evening breeze settles over the camp, carrying with it the scent of smoke, crushed plants, and something richer, the unmistakable aroma of oils. By now, the simple rinsing of water and the scratching of sand are well known, but there is a new method that feels almost sophisticated. The discovery of oils, both from animals and plants, changes the rhythm of cleaning. Animal fat, as you have already felt, is thick and heavy. It clings to the skin and takes effort to remove, but it does more than clean. It protects against harsh winds and keeps the skin from cracking under the sun. It is not glamorous, yet there is a certain satisfaction in knowing that this slick layer doubles as a kind of natural shield. People begin to realize that if you rub fat into the skin and then scrape or wipe it away, the dirt and sweat lift with it. It is the first real deep clean, even if it smells faintly like roasted meat. Plant oils, once discovered, feel different, lighter, smoother, and with a kind of natural shine that leaves the skin soft. Crushing nuts or seeds, heating them gently over the fire, and watching the oil seep out must have felt like a small miracle. Imagine dipping your fingers into a shallow bowl of warm oil and letting it run across your skin. It feels like liquid sunlight, gliding easily where water once stung with its chill. The process is simple but deliberate. First, you coat the skin with oil, massaging it in until it mixes with the day's grime. Then, using a rough cloth, a bundle of dried grass, or even the edge of a smooth stone, you scrape the mixture away. The result is cleaner skin that still carries the faint aroma of whatever oil you used. If it is animal fat, you smell like a campfire feast. If it is a crushed plant oil, the scent is softer, earthy, and slightly nutty. Imagine someone standing by the fire, oil glistening on their arms as they work it in with slow, firm strokes. The firelight makes every movement shine. It almost looks ceremonial, though the only ceremony here is survival. When they scrape away the mixture, the skin beneath looks refreshed, glowing in a way that water alone never managed to achieve. There is a quiet humor in this practice. Too much oil and you slip through your own fingers like a greasy cooking pan. Not enough, and the dirt stays stubbornly in place. Someone might spend half an hour applying and scraping, only to find that they still look like they spent the day wrestling a wild boar. But when it works, there is something deeply satisfying about the result. The tools evolve with this method. The simple scraping stones of earlier times become slightly more refined. A smooth bone or shell can work wonders, gliding across the surface of the skin and carrying the mixture of oil and dirt with it. These are not luxurious items, but in their own way, they are valuable. A well-polished bone scraper might even be shared among the group, treasured for how well it works compared to rougher tools. Plant oils add another layer of discovery. Once people realize that seeds and nuts hold hidden reserves of oil, the experimentation becomes endless. A handful of seeds is roasted and ground, producing a small but precious drop of golden liquid. This oil not only cleans but softens the skin. It is, in many ways, the earliest form of moisturizer. After days of sun, wind, and ash, the feeling of smooth, nourished skin must have felt like a small piece of luxury. You can almost feel it now. The glide of oil between your fingers, the way it coats your arms with a thin warmth, the satisfying scrape of a cloth that leaves your skin feeling light and soft. There is no soap yet, no bubbling foam, but there is a growing sense that cleaning can be more than just a chore. It can feel pleasant, even soothing. The smell, however, is another matter. Animal fats, no matter how well prepared, carry a strong, lingering odor. It is the scent of survival, yes, but not the kind of fragrance you would want to carry into a modern elevator. Plant oils fare better. The scent of crushed seeds or roasted nuts is milder, even pleasant in its earthy simplicity. The combination of oils with herbs or flowers is a game changer, creating the earliest attempts at something close to fragrance. By the time the fire dims, you see the group finishing their cleaning rituals. Someone wipes their arms with a final cloth, glistening slightly in the fading light. Another sits with a mix of oil and crushed mint leaves, rubbing it into their hair, the scent rising like a natural perfume. These simple methods are more than enough to take the edge off a long day of work, and for a moment, everyone feels lighter. As you sit by the fire, the glow of clean skin and the subtle shine of oil around you, there is an unspoken understanding that these discoveries, these humble mixtures of fat, oil, and plants, are the beginnings of something far greater. They are the first steps toward a future where cleaning is not just about removing dirt, but about feeling human, refreshed, and alive. The fire has burned low, leaving only glowing embers, and the evening air feels cooler against your skin. This is the perfect time to explore another discovery that changes how people clean themselves: heat. Not just the heat of the sun or the warmth of a fire, but the deliberate use of steam, smoke, and heated air to cleanse both the body and the spirit. Imagine stepping into a small, makeshift shelter built from branches and animal skins. Inside, someone has heated stones until they glow faintly. A bowl of water is poured over them, releasing a cloud of steam that curls and twists in the dim light. The air becomes heavy and warm, wrapping around you like a damp blanket. Your breath slows as the heat sinks into your muscles, coaxing out the tension from a long day. This is not just about cleaning anymore. It is about feeling alive again. The heat opens your pores, and sweat begins to bead on your skin. It feels almost as if the grime of the day is melting away, carried out of you with every drop that rolls down your arms and chest. When you wipe your skin, it feels softer, smoother, as though the heat itself has done half the work of cleaning. You are not scrubbing, not scraping, just sitting and letting warmth do the job. There is a smoky version of this ritual as well. Smoke baths begin with burning certain plants or herbs, letting the fragrant smoke fill a small enclosure. You sit inside, letting the smoke curl around you. The scent clings to your skin, replacing the sour smell of sweat with something sharper and cleaner. Some herbs have natural antibacterial properties, though no one knows this yet. They only know that smoke leaves them feeling fresh, almost purified. This combination of heat and fragrance is mesmerizing. The sound of water hissing on hot stones, the faint crackle of embers, the aroma of burning leaves. It creates a sensory experience that is both relaxing and cleansing. It is easy to imagine why this became a group activity. Sitting together in the warm air, people talk quietly, share stories, or simply sit in silence, letting the steam do its work. It is as much about connection as it is about hygiene. When the steam session ends, you step outside into the cool air. Every part of you tingles. You feel lighter, almost renewed, as if the day has been washed away without a single drop of soap. To finish, you might take a quick plunge into a cold stream, shocking your skin and locking in that feeling of freshness. The combination of heat and cold leaves you awake, alert, and oddly content. There is a playful side to this too. Imagine someone sitting too close to the hot stones and leaping up with a startled cry when the steam burns their legs. Or the awkward shuffle of people trying not to slip on the damp ground as they wipe sweat from their faces. These little moments bring laughter, making the ritual less solemn and more human. The tools are simple. A bundle of dried herbs might be tossed onto the hot stones, releasing an earthy scent. Sometimes, people use branches with soft leaves to gently slap the skin, stimulating circulation and helping the sweat flow. It sounds odd, but it works. You can almost feel the rhythmic tap of leaves on your arms, the heat seeping deeper into your muscles with every movement. Steam is not the only form of heat cleansing. In some places, hot sand is used instead of water. Imagine lying down in a shallow pit of warm sand, the grains covering your body, absorbing moisture and drawing out impurities. When you brush the sand away, your skin feels smoother, less heavy. It is a strange method, but one that makes sense when water is scarce. The spiritual side of heat cannot be ignored. Even if no one speaks of it, there is something deeply cleansing about sitting in steam, as if the body and mind are both being reset. It is not hard to see why later cultures would turn this into a tradition. The hammams, the bathhouses, the saunas, all descendants of this early idea that heat can do more than warm you. It can cleanse you. As the night deepens, you step out of the warm shelter and into the cool, open air. The stars above feel brighter, and the breeze feels like a gift. Your skin is damp but fresh, carrying the faint scent of burned herbs. For a moment, there is nothing else to do but sit quietly, breathing in the clean night air and feeling the warmth fade slowly from your body. The next morning begins with the soft rustle of wind through tall grass and the faint chatter of voices near the water's edge. This is not just another rinse. Something new is happening. A group is gathering, and it is not only for survival, but for the growing ritual of cleaning together. Communal washing is born not out of luxury, but from necessity, and the simple truth that it is easier, and often safer, to wash when everyone is close by. Imagine the scene. A shallow river glimmers in the early light, its surface rippling under the soft push of a breeze. A few people wade in, the water reaching just above their knees, while others crouch along the bank, splashing themselves with quick handfuls. There is laughter in the air, the kind of laughter that comes when daily chores are turned into shared moments. Washing together is not just about cleaning the body. It is about reaffirming connection to the group, sharing warmth and conversation. There is nothing private about this process. Nobody is worried about how they look, and nobody is comparing who is the cleanest. Instead, there is a rhythm to the activity. Someone rubs their arms with sand, while another dips a rough cloth into the river, wrings it out, and wipes their face. Children splash one another, while adults pretend not to notice, secretly grateful for the small joy in their laughter. The sound of water and voices blend together, creating a simple, timeless melody. The tools are basic but shared. A smooth stone passed from one person to the next. A cloth woven from plant fibers, stiff but surprisingly effective at wiping away grime. A bundle of soft leaves tied together with a strip of bark, used as an early version of a brush. These items are not owned by individuals, but by the group as a whole. In this way, cleaning becomes a shared responsibility, a kind of collective act of care. There is humor in these gatherings. Someone inevitably falls into the water while trying to scrub their feet on a rock. Another person gets a face full of cold water from a mischievous splash. It is clumsy and unrefined, but it feels alive. These small, imperfect moments turn washing into something more than just a task. It becomes a moment of relief, even fun. Communal washing also has a practical side. It makes sense to gather near the same stream rather than each person wandering off alone. The water stays cleaner if used in one area, and the group can help one another reach spots that are otherwise difficult to scrub. There is also safety in numbers. Predators or dangers are less of a threat when everyone is together, and the shared laughter acts as both comfort and signal. You can almost feel the energy of this scene. The cool splash of water against your ankles, the sharp smell of wet earth, the sound of stones grinding softly under bare feet. The early sun glints off the water's surface, creating a shimmer that dances across faces and arms. There is a simple beauty here. one that does not need polish or perfume. Just the shared act of being alive and trying, in some small way, to feel lighter. Over time, these communal sessions become more than habit. They turn into a kind of social event. This is where people exchange stories, share news, or simply sit in quiet company while rubbing oil into their skin. It is where bonds grow stronger. Even without language as we know it, the simple rhythm of washing side by side says something. It says, we belong here, together. Think of the quiet moments that follow. After the splashing and scrubbing, there is a pause. People sit on the warm stones near the bank, letting the sun dry their skin. The water drips from their arms and legs, darkening the rock beneath them before quickly disappearing into the heat. It is peaceful. There is no rush, no clock, only the slow rhythm of life moving forward. Even in modern times, something about communal bathing feels ancient and comforting. Hot springs, public baths, saunas, they all trace their roots back to this idea that cleaning can be both personal and shared. Here, in this early scene, you see the beginning of that tradition. It is raw, unpolished, and far from luxurious. But it carries the same essence, a quiet moment to connect, refresh, and let go. The sound of the river continues, steady and low. As the group finishes their washing, someone wrings out a cloth, another shakes water from their hair, and soon they return to their daily tasks. The water, now rippling under the sunlight, carries away the small traces of dirt and sweat, leaving nothing but the faint memory of laughter and a few damp footprints on the rocks. The days grow warmer, and the simple rinsing and oiling routines begin to feel incomplete. People want to do more than just remove dirt. They want to feel refreshed, to smell pleasant, to carry something of the natural world on their skin. This leads to the rise of tools and early substitutes for soap. There is no bubbling lather yet, but the ingenuity of these makeshift methods is remarkable. Imagine a bundle of dried grasses tied together with a strip of bark. It is rough in the hand, but when dipped in water and rubbed across the skin, it works like a primitive brush, scraping away layers of sweat and mud. Over time, these brushes evolve, using softer fibers for sensitive areas or firmer bundles for the tougher patches of skin on feet and hands. The feeling is not unlike a modern scrub, though far less forgiving. Every swipe is a reminder that beauty, at this point in history, is not a gentle pursuit. Herbal blends become a common companion to these tools. Crushed lavender leaves, wild mint, or pine needles are mixed with water or oil to create fragrant cleaning pastes. These are rubbed onto the skin with the brushes or cloths, leaving behind both a clean surface and a hint of natural scent. Imagine rubbing a paste of crushed mint across your arms and feeling the cool tingle it leaves, followed by the soft, herbal aroma that lingers as you dry in the sun. Clay continues to play its part, but now it is often combined with herbs or oils to create more complex mixtures. A person might smear a layer of clay mixed with lavender and ash over their face, letting it dry and crack before rinsing it off in a stream. The sensation is strangely soothing, as if the clay is pulling every bit of grit and oil from the pores. When it is washed away, the skin feels fresh. Though the process leaves you looking briefly like a painted statue, animal-derived solutions also persist. Fat is sometimes mixed with ash to form a sticky paste that cleans better than either ingredient alone. While this is still a far cry from modern soap, it is the first hint of the chemical magic that will someday lead to lather and bubbles. The smell, however, is another matter. It is smoky, oily, and persistent. You can almost imagine someone wiping their arms with this mixture, wrinkling their nose, and muttering something along the lines of, "Well, at least I am cleaner than I was." These cleaning sessions are often done in groups, much like the communal washing by the river. People gather with their brushes, pastes, and bundles of herbs, each sharing what they have discovered works best. There is an experimental energy in the air. One person boasts that ash mixed with pine needles gives the cleanest result. Another swears by a combination of clay and oil, claiming it leaves the skin soft enough to rival river stones. The group tries them all, laughing at the odd smells and stains left behind. You can picture someone sitting on a warm rock, rubbing a coarse brush across their arms. The bristles scratch the skin just enough to bring a rosy flush, while the herbal paste releases a gentle fragrance that drifts into the air. The sound of brushing is soft but steady, like a low whisper against the backdrop of running water. It is not the foamy, fragrant experience of modern bathing, but it has its own charm. The feeling afterward is satisfying. Your skin tingles from the friction, and the scent of crushed herbs lingers like a natural perfume. There is no sleek shine of bottled lotion, but the oils from plants leave the skin with a faint glow. It is easy to see how these early tools and mixtures laid the groundwork for what would later become soap and cosmetics. Humor is never far from these scenes. Someone inevitably drops their bundle of herbs into the river and watches it float away, like a tiny raft. Another might apply too much clay to their face, cracking it into strange shapes when they smile. These small moments of clumsiness add to the sense of shared discovery, making the act of cleaning feel more like a craft than a chore. As the sun sets, the brushes are left to dry near the fire, their tips stiff with the residue of herbs and clay. The smell of crushed plant mixes with smoke, creating an aroma that is oddly pleasant, earthy, sharp, and calming all at once. People sit quietly, running their fingers over freshly scrubbed arms, feeling the difference even if it is not perfect. In this moment, you understand something simple yet profound. Cleanliness is not just about removing dirt. It is about the small comfort of feeling renewed, even if only for a while. The days are quieter now, filled with the hum of insects and the rustle of tall grass in the breeze. You find yourself watching as someone carefully gathers a handful of rice husks, crushing them between their palms until the rough, flaky texture softens. Though this is not a scene from every part of the world, the principle is the same everywhere, using what nature provides to clean in the gentlest way possible. Grain husks, ground seeds, and even fine powders become part of early experiments in staying fresh. Rice bran, in particular, becomes something of a hidden treasure. When mixed with warm water, it forms a smooth, creamy paste that feels soft against the skin. It does not scratch like sand or sting like ash. Instead, it feels like nature's own version of a gentle cleanser. Imagine scooping up a small handful of this pale, silky mixture, rubbing it slowly across your arms and face, and feeling the faint, almost sweet aroma rise with the warmth of the water. It is not soap, but it is surprisingly close in how it softens and cleans. Elsewhere, fine powders made from ground grains or dried flowers become popular. Oat-like grains are pounded into dust, then mixed with a few drops of oil or water to form a paste. When this is applied to the skin, it feels soothing rather than harsh. The grains absorb oil and dirt while leaving behind a soft, smooth texture. It is easy to imagine how someone might prefer this over the brutal scrape of sand or the heavy coating of animal fat. This feels like progress, a step closer to what we might recognize today as care rather than punishment. Plant infusions take on a new importance as well. People begin to pour hot water over dried leaves or flowers, creating fragrant rinses. Tea, in its earliest form, is not just for drinking. A cooled tea made from wild herbs might be used to splash on the face, both for its aroma and its refreshing feel. Picture dipping a cloth into this herbal water, wringing it out, and pressing it against your skin. The warmth seeps in, carrying the scent of the plants with it, while a subtle layer of freshness is left behind. These methods are often paired with moments of calm. Unlike the loud, splashy chaos of communal river washing, the use of powders and herbal rinses feels slower, almost private. You can imagine sitting alone, a clay bowl in your lap, carefully mixing water with crushed grains until it forms just the right texture. The sound of grinding seeds is soft and rhythmic, like the murmur of distant rain. Each motion is deliberate, and for a moment, the simple act of cleaning becomes meditative. There is something about the smell of these natural cleansers that makes the experience even richer. Rice bran has a faint sweetness, like fresh straw warmed by the sun. Crushed flowers, even if faded, leave behind traces of their scent, turning a simple rinse into something faintly luxurious. These smells mix with the background aroma of earth and smoke, creating an atmosphere that feels both raw and comforting. Humor, however, never disappears. Someone inevitably mixes too much water with their powder, creating a thin, drippy mess that slides right off the skin. Another person tries a new plant infusion, only to discover it stains their hands yellow for a day. These mishaps, though inconvenient, are met with laughter and shared advice. Little by little, these experiments build a kind of collective knowledge. What works, what smells pleasant, and what leaves you looking like a walking bowl of porridge. You can almost feel the texture of this process now. The smoothness of ground grain against your palms, the warm water turning it into a silky paste, the way it glides across your skin and then rinses away, leaving behind a faint softness. It is a far cry from the sharpness of sand or the weight of oil, and it feels like a small victory. This is not just survival cleaning anymore. It is starting to feel like care, as though the body is something worth treating with a bit of gentleness. As the day winds down, the group sits near the fire, their skin faintly glowing in the soft light. Someone is still grinding seeds with a small stone, preparing a batch for the next morning. The rhythmic scraping sound blends with the crackle of the fire, creating a quiet soundtrack to the evening. It is simple, almost serene, and you cannot help but think that this moment is not so different from the way modern people set aside time for self-care. The ingredients may have changed, but the feeling, that quiet satisfaction of being clean, remains timeless. The smoke curls upward in thin ribbons as someone tosses a bundle of dried herbs into the fire. The scent that rises is warm and sweet, full of soft spices and faint floral notes. It is not just for comfort. It is part of a routine, one that has developed slowly through generations of trial and error. The idea has begun to take root, that cleaning is not just about water, not just about removing dirt, but about something deeper. It is about renewal of body, of mind, and of spirit. The fire burns hotter than usual today. Large stones are heating in the flames, and nearby, people gather with towels, oils, and cloths. This is not just a wash. It is a ritual. A space has been prepared, walled in with stone or packed earth, low and warm and dark. This is the beginning of something that feels familiar, the forerunner of what will later be called the bathhouse. You duck into the low entrance, the heat hits you like a wave. Not dry and sharp, but heavy and humid. The air is filled with the rich scent of smoke, herbs, and warm stone. Inside, others sit quietly, their skin shining with sweat, their eyes half closed. This is not a place for noise. It is a space of rest, cleansing, and silence. The sweat comes quickly, pulled out by the heat. Your skin grows slick, and the layers of oil and dirt begin to loosen. A cloth soaked in warm water is passed around, each person using it to wipe their skin, one slow stroke at a time. Someone reaches for a small bowl of dark paste. It is made from crushed olives, ash, and a bit of oil, thick, black, and slick. They rub it over their skin like a scrub, working it into the pores before wiping it away with a soft mitt. This paste, sometimes called black soap in later times, is still in its early form. It is not soap as we know it. There is no foam, no perfume, but it is powerful. The ash acts as a gentle abrasive, while the oil loosens dirt and coats the skin with a thin, protective layer. When it is wiped away, the result is clean, soft skin with a faint, earthy scent. It is a strange feeling, not sterile, not soapy, but deeply fresh, like coming in from the rain after a long walk. The mitts are rough, but effective. Often made from tightly woven fibers or animal hair, they scrape the mixture away, taking with it layers of dead skin and oil. There is something satisfying about it. Each pass of the mitt leaves the skin warmer, smoother, glowing just slightly in the flickering light of the room. You can almost hear the soft rasp as someone scrubs their shoulder, followed by the faint sound of water being wrung from cloth. This bathhouse is not large, it is not grand, but it is a sanctuary. People come not just to clean, but to feel human again. The space is quiet, save for the soft sounds of movement, clothed against skin, water dripping, fire crackling just outside. Someone places another bundle of herbs on the hot stones. Steam rises in a lazy swirl, carrying the scent of eucalyptus and sage. You breathe deeply, letting the warm air settle in your chest. There is no rush here, no sense of urgency. You sit until your skin feels soft and your body feels lighter. Then you rinse with warm water, poured slowly from a bowl. It runs over your shoulders, down your arms, carrying the last traces of the paste away. The floor grows wet and dark beneath you, but you hardly notice. All that matters is the sensation, warm skin, clear breath, a calm mind. There is a simplicity to this ritual that makes it timeless. It is not about impressing anyone. There are no mirrors, no scented products lined up on a shelf, just heat, steam, oil, and the steady rhythm of cloth against skin. It is cleaning, yes, but it is also reflection. You come here not just to scrub away dirt, but to shed something heavier, the burden of the day, the weight of worry. Even now, you can feel it, the warmth of the air, the softness of the mitt, the slow drip of water down your spine. It is not luxury, but it is comfort, and in this moment, it is enough. The people around you seem to understand this too. No one speaks, but there is a shared peace in the room, a quiet acknowledgement that this is something sacred. As you leave the bathhouse, stepping back into the cool air, your skin feels new. The scent of herbs still lingers faintly, and every breath feels deeper. The fire continues to burn low behind you, its smoke rising steadily into the twilight sky. You are cleaner than you have been in days, perhaps even weeks, and for the first time in a while. You feel not only washed but restored. The evening settles into a stillness, broken only by the distant sounds of insects and the faint crackle of the fire. You notice something different now, something softer and quieter. There is no water, no sand, no oil. Instead, a group gathers near a slow-burning fire, the smoke rising in steady streams. This is a different kind of cleansing, one that does not wash the body with water, but purifies it with air, heat, and scent. Smoke baths are one of the oldest and simplest methods of feeling fresh. Imagine standing close to the fire as someone places fragrant herbs, sage, pine needles, or dried flowers onto the embers. The smoke thickens and swirls, clinging to skin, hair, and clothing. It does not remove the dirt, but it masks odors and leaves behind a scent that feels both grounding and invigorating. In this moment, you are not simply cleaning the body, you are cleansing the spirit, at least in the way people understood it then. You step closer to the fire. The smoke wraps around you like a shawl, warm and aromatic. The scent of dried sage is sharp and clean, mixing with the earthiness of charred wood. Someone uses a bundle of herbs as a fan, wafting the smoke deliberately over arms, shoulders, and hair. You close your eyes, breathing it in, letting the warmth settle on your skin. There is no scrubbing, no scraping, yet there is a sensation of renewal. The smell of sweat fades, replaced by the wild, spicy fragrance of the herbs. Elsewhere, similar methods are used. In forests, people sometimes sit inside small, enclosed spaces where smoke fills every corner. It is not comfortable, your eyes sting, and the air is heavy. But when you step out into the open, there is a strange freshness, as though the smoke has burned away not just the smells of the day, but the weariness too. You feel lighter, even if your skin is still streaked with dust. Herbal infusions also play a role here. Bundles of plants are soaked in warm water, and the infusion is used to wipe the body with a cloth. The herbs leave their fragrance behind and create a cooling, soothing effect. Picture dipping a soft piece of fabric into this warm, fragrant water and pressing it against your face. The scent rises gently, sweet from flowers, sharp from mint or pine, and as you wipe, the cloth carries away a thin layer of grime. It is not as through as a modern shower, but it is enough to feel revived. You can imagine the group sitting in a half circle around the fire, each person taking turns to lean into the smoke. The air is thick with the aroma of burning plants, the kind of smell that lingers in hair and clothing long after the fire dies down. Someone laughs as another person coughs dramatically from getting too close, and the moment lightens. It is practical, yes, but also social, another excuse to gather, to share warmth, and to feel connected. The simplicity of it all is striking. No brushes, no tools, just fire, herbs, and patience. There is something almost ceremonial about the way the smoke rises and drifts, as though carrying away not just smells, but the remnants of the day itself. When you step away, your hair smells of pine and sage. Your clothes carry the memory of the fire, and your mind feels clearer. There is humor here as well. Picture someone overdoing it with the herbs, walking away smelling like a walking campfire mixed with an entire spice rack. Or someone waving the herb bundle too close to their face and coughing for several minutes while everyone else chuckles. These small imperfections make the experience more real, more human. Even now, you can feel the warmth of the smoke curling around you, the texture of the air thicker and more fragrant than usual. You can almost taste the sweetness of burned flowers mixed with wood ash. The moment is slow and deliberate, without rush or distraction. It is a far cry from soap and lather, yet it is strangely effective. You feel refreshed, lighter, and more alive. As the fire begins to burn lower, the group stands and shakes out their hair. letting the last tendrils of smoke drift away. There is a calmness in the air, a sense that this simple ritual has done its work. No water was needed tonight, only the quiet power of fire, smoke, and nature's sense. The next few days bring cooler winds and the faint smell of rain in the air. The river is colder now, its surface rippling with an almost metallic shimmer. Washing in the stream is less appealing when the water bites at your skin, and so people start leaning on other ways to feel clean. The old methods of sand and ash are still used, but more often now, people turn to scented powders, cloths, and oils, anything that avoids stepping into icy water. The cloths become a staple of daily life, woven from plant fibers or animal hair. They are rough enough to scrub, but soft enough to use on the face. Imagine holding a damp cloth, warming it over a fire, and wiping it slowly along your arms. The warmth lifts the grime, while the fabric's weave catches the tiny particles of dust and sweat. This dry-style bathing feels less shocking than a plunge in the river, and the gentle scraping leaves you feeling fresher. Perfumed powders are another clever solution. People crush dried flowers, herbs, and even fine clays into a soft, fragrant dust. A pinch of this powder is rubbed onto the skin or clothing, masking odors while leaving a faint aroma that lingers for hours. Imagine running a mixture of crushed rose petals and lavender across your neck, the petals soft and powdery between your fingers. It does not clean in the modern sense, but it gives the illusion of freshness and perhaps even elegance. There is a growing fascination with fragrance. The smoke from herbs and the oils from seeds are now combined to create stronger scents, a mix of pine, mint, and something faintly sweet. People realize that even if they cannot wash as often, they can smell as though they have. This marks the beginning of what you might call maintenance cleanliness. Not true bathing, but enough to feel presentable. It is easy to picture someone spending half an hour dusting their skin with perfumed powders, smoothing their hair, and stepping into the day with a kind of confidence that only comes from smelling better than the campfire. Animal fats continue to be used, but they are now often combined with these powders. Someone might rub a small amount of oil onto their skin, then pat it down with a layer of fragrant dust, creating something like the earliest form of body balm. The oil locks in moisture, while the powder softens the scent and texture. It is far from glamorous. If you put on too much, you end up looking like you rolled in dough, but it works well enough. These dry cleaning methods also travel easily. While a river or fire requires preparation, a pouch of powders or a soft cloth can be carried anywhere. People take them on long journeys, using them during travel when no water is nearby. You can almost see someone seated on a rock, patting fragrant dust onto their arms, brushing away the excess, and feeling a little lighter in spirit even if the dust itself clings to their hair. Humor is ever present. Someone might apply too much scented powder and sneeze until their eyes water. Another might spill an entire pouch into their lap, walking around with a faint cloud of rose petals following them like a personal weather system. These accidents are small, but they make the process feel less like a chore and more like a shared moment of amusement. The scent that lingers is surprisingly pleasant. Instead of the sharp, smoky aroma of fire or the heavy smell of animal fat, the air now carries a light, floral note, mingled with the faint sweetness of crushed herbs. It feels softer, almost inviting. After a day of dry bathing, you can imagine lying down to sleep and still catching the faint scent of lavender or mint on your own skin. A reminder that nature always finds a way to offer comfort. Even without water, this approach leaves you feeling clean, or at least cleaner than before. The warmth of the cloth, the softness of the powders, and the careful layering of scents all work together to create a feeling of renewal. It is not as thorough as a river bath, but in the chill of the season it is far more appealing. As the fire burns lower that evening, someone sets out a row of pouches. Even without water, the group chooses their favorites, dusting arms and faces in the soft light. The night air smells faintly of flowers and herbs, a gentle reminder that even before soap, people found ways to turn necessity into something that felt almost luxurious. The air feels damp tonight, and the faint scent of rain lingers, mixing with smoke from the fire. You sit quietly, watching as someone stirs a mixture of ash and fat in a clay pot. The blend is sticky, dark, and unremarkable at first glance, but this is where a great shift begins. Without knowing it, these experiments are leading to the first forms of true soap. It starts simply. Ash from burned wood is mixed with water, creating an alkaline solution that feels slippery between the fingers. On its own, this is not particularly useful for washing. It is harsh, stings the skin, and leaves it feeling tight. But when combined with animal fat, something almost magical happens. The mixture binds together, forming a substance that not only removes grime, but does so more effectively than anything tried before. It is rough, it is crude, and it smells like the fire it came from, but it works. Imagine someone rubbing this early soap between their palms. There is no foam, no soft bubbles, only a gritty, oily smear that clings to the skin. Yet as it is rinsed off with water, the difference is clear. Dirt lifts more easily. The skin feels less greasy, less weighed down. For the first time, there is a sense of true cleanliness, as if the body has been stripped back to its natural state. The discovery is not neat or elegant. Many attempts fail. Sometimes the mixture is too harsh, leaving red patches on the skin. Other times it is too greasy, doing little more than smear dirt around. You can almost picture the frustration of those early attempts, with someone muttering under their breath as yet another batch turns out wrong. But slowly, through patience and countless small experiments, the right balance is found. The smell, however, is not pleasant. Ash has a sharp, bitter scent, and animal fat adds a heavy, smoky undertone. To soften this, people begin adding herbs or flowers to the mixture. Crushed mint, lavender, or pine needles are stirred in while the paste is still warm, giving the final product a faint but welcome aroma. It is still far from the sweet perfumes of modern soaps, but it is a start. The process of making this early soap becomes an event in itself. A fire burns low, a pot simmers gently, and the air fills with the strong scent of ash and herbs. People gather around, not just to watch, but to learn. Each person brings ideas. Add more ash, stir longer, mix in oil from seeds. The results are shared, tested, and refined. It is slow progress, but every batch brings them closer to something better. Using this soap-like paste is not exactly pleasant. It feels coarse, gritty, and sticky at first, but the results are undeniable. You can almost feel it on your own hands now, rough as it spreads across the skin, then leaving a strange smoothness once rinsed. For the first time, cleaning is not just about covering smells or scraping away dirt. It is about truly removing the layers of the day. Humor sneaks in even here. Someone might use too much ash and end up with a paste that feels like spreading mud mixed with glass shards. Another might add far too many herbs, turning the mixture into something that smells like a wild garden caught on fire. These mistakes are met with laughter and shared advice, small reminders that innovation is always messy. The change is clear though. With this early soap, the act of washing starts to feel different. It is less about survival and more about comfort. People begin to notice that their skin feels lighter, smoother, even softer after using the paste. They begin to seek out this feeling, to set aside time for it, to treat it as something worth doing regularly, rather than just when absolutely necessary. As the night deepens, the pot of soap-like paste cools near the fire. A few people try it, rubbing it between their palms, rinsing with water from a clay jar, and marveling at the difference. The smell of ash and herbs lingers in the air, but beneath it is the faint, promising hint of something new, the birth of a cleansing tradition that will carry forward for centuries. You sit back, feeling the warmth of the fire on your face, and realize that this simple, rough mixture marks a turning point. The journey from sand and ash to modern soap has begun, and though it is far from perfect, it is a glimpse of what is to come. The fire crackles low, and the stars overhead flicker faintly through a haze of smoke. You sit quietly, warm from the flames and cleaner than you have felt in days. Around you, the group settles into silence. No one says it aloud, but something has changed. Ash and fat paste, the idea of cleanliness has shifted again. It is no longer a crude necessity. It has started to feel like a daily practice, something worth making time for. From here, the path forward is slow but certain. The paste is refined over time. People begin straining the ash water more carefully, using specific types of wood to create a milder base. The fat is rendered longer, removing the strongest smells. In some places, herbs are dried and powdered before being mixed in. This turns the cleaning process from something awkward and gritty into something closer to what we might call soap. It still does not foam, but it works. You try a new batch. It is smoother than before, softer on the hands, and it smells faintly of wild mint and warm earth. As you rub it between your fingers, it spreads more easily, loosening the dirt without scratching the skin. When you rinse with water, the difference is subtle but unmistakable. Your skin feels cleaner, not just scraped or masked. For the first time, cleaning leaves no sharpness, no sting, only comfort. This new method spreads slowly. People teach each other how to make it, passing down knowledge through quiet repetition. Someone shares the right wood to burn. Another shows how long to render the fat. The children watch, then try for themselves, proud when they manage a batch that does not smell like burned meat. It becomes a skill, a simple, daily craft that holds meaning. Eventually, the process becomes more consistent. In some villages, soap is made in larger pots, poured into shallow molds, and left to cool. These blocks are stored and used over weeks. No longer a daily experiment, soap becomes part of routine life. It is carried on long journeys, traded between communities, even given as gifts. It is not a luxury, but it feels like one. Imagine holding one of these early blocks. It is dense, slightly sticky, and smells faintly of smoke and herbs. You shave off a thin sliver, rub it between damp hands, and feel the residue soften and lift the grime. When it is gone, your skin feels new, not polished or perfumed, just clean, in the truest, simplest sense of the word. The act of washing itself has changed. It is no longer a quick splash in a river or a rough scrape with a stone. It is slower now, almost mindful. People take their time, not out of vanity, but because it feels good. It feels right. To remove the weight of the day, the dust, the smoke, the sweat, is to return to something basic and pure. You notice small signs of this everywhere. A cloth hanging by a fire, damp and warm. A wooden bowl filled with clean water, set aside for washing hands before a meal. A small jar of crushed herbs tucked into a pack. These things say something. We take care of ourselves now. Even in the absence of mirrors or modern rules, there is pride in being clean. There is still humor in the process. Someone always drops their soap in the dirt. Another person forgets which jar holds powdered mint and ends up scrubbing with crushed bitter roots instead. But the tone has changed. These are no longer the clumsy experiments of survival. They are the normal mishaps of people who expect to feel clean at the end of the day, who understand that cleaning is not just something you do when desperate, but something that helps you feel like yourself again. Even now, as you sit beside the fire, your skin warm and smooth, you can sense how far things have come. From rain and sand, from ash and leaves, from smoke and oil, you have walked a long path. The first signs of true soap are here, and the idea of cleanliness has finally taken shape, not as a luxury, not as a fear, but as a quiet part of life. The stars shine brighter now, and the air feels gentler on your skin. Tomorrow, you will wake up and clean again, not because you must, but because you can. And that is something remarkable. Now, everything is quiet. The fire has faded to warm embers, casting a soft glow that flickers along the ground. Your hands are clean, your skin is calm, and the air smells faintly of herbs and cooling ash. You have walked a long journey, through rivers and sand, oils and steam, through trial and error and slow discovery. There is nothing left to do tonight. No more rinsing, no more scrubbing, just the warmth of clean skin beneath a soft breeze, and the stillness that follows care. With each breath, your body feels lighter. Every muscle eases, your shoulders fall, your thoughts grow slower. You are here, at rest, wrapped in the simplest kind of comfort. The feeling of being clean, warm, and still. Let the sounds drift away now. The fire's soft crackle, the wind through the leaves, the hush of night settling in around you. Let your breath slow, in and out, a little longer, a little softer. Feel the weight of your body sinking gently into the earth beneath you. There is nothing else you need, nothing else to fix, just the steady rhythm of breath and the gentle quiet of a world that has paused. Tomorrow will come, but for now, let yourself fall back into sleep, into softness, into silence. The journey is done. You are clean, calm, and exactly where you need to be. Sleep well and good night.